Okay, so appendix here is, and video 2 is about some quiz question examples, and then also a little bit of insight into the management by the numbers tutorials. So a few example questions here. I'm going to give you some structured questions and an example of a short answer essay question. You're not going to find these terribly difficult as long as you've read the book and so forth. So these three are from chapter 1. Which of the following is true? Positioning strategy is what? Is it the advertising about location? Is it a statement of brand's meaningful difference? Is it does it relate only to identification of claims, or does it relate to the fact that there should only be a single claim? And the answer you'll find in the book is a term we're going to use pretty frequently, and this whole notion of meaningful difference and as it relates to value proposition. Second question, true or false, the goal of identifying market segments is to be able to spend resources equally for every segment identified, and you will certainly understand very firmly in the near future that this is the absolute opposite of what segmentation is about, because it's about resource allocation in an efficient and more focused way. So you identify segments to point your arrow more effectively. In a marketing plan, why do target market and positioning decisions precede marketing program? Right. So this is marketing mix and sort of detailed more the tactical and execution stuff. So is it because the marketing program decisions need more detail, so more space, or is it because they're less important? The answer is there's a sequential logic to a plan, and the strategic decisions like targeting and positioning come first. So these decisions are more effectively made when the strategic decisions are made before them. Really quick example of an application of a case study. I'm not going to read through this whole thing, but this is about Ford hitting a more profitable period, in part because they held the line on price promotion and started to focus more on features and value-added features, which included, for example, heated leather seats. And so the question is about in chapter 6 this time. Where would you get feedback in the product development process around the value of value-added features to consumers? And it turns out when you read this chapter, you'll see there are a number of different places where that will occur. The last question, example here, shows you kind of the application of a framework. Short answer essay question about Google Docs versus Microsoft Word. And the question is, well, in building a promotion strategy for the university student market for Google Docs, how would you frame that up? And there's a very simple framework that turns out to be very powerful because it gives a guidance in a pretty comprehensive way to how you build out communication strategy. Bob Dolan, initially from Harvard at the University of Michigan, developed this model in a very simple way, ranging from identifying target market and being very clear about that, all the way to once you've executed communications, how are you going to measure the results of those communications. I want to mention before, because I did not, I think in the earlier video, mention that the quiz timeline is 2 hours. So once you start a quiz, you have 2 hours to complete it. So I want to make sure everybody's clear on that you do have 9 days to do it, but once you sit down, you got a 2 hour block to get it done. And for the most part, you will have objective or more structured questions, but you also have some of these essay questions as well, and an open text box to type in answers. Management by the numbers, wanted to give you just a brief insight here on some of the basics. So one tutorial, I'll illustrate both the logic and style of this. One tutorial is about break-even, which you've seen before in accounting. Let's say you got a new business selling widgets, your first year fixed costs are 1.5 million. The break-even question is, well, how many units do we have to sell to cover that 1.5 million? Well, you got to know your margin. So we're selling for $100, variable cost of 60, leaving a margin of 40. Okay, and the standard formula that everybody should know and love and memorize is that break-even in units is just simply the ratio of fixed cost to margin. So every unit you sell here, you make this amount of money, and you divide that into this number you need, and that will give you the number of units you got to sell to cover that $1.5 million. 1.5 million divided by the 40 gives you 37,500. Now, what really gets interesting then is interpreting what this means. And what it means is that you got to sell over 37,000 units just to break even. So you just to have a profit of zero. So now all of a sudden it turns your attention to, oh my God, how big is this market and how competitive is it and how hard is it to get a point of market share and so forth. So this is an incredibly rich and valuable calculation. Also, another way to look at this, and a lot of folks do, is to say break-even revenue, because sometimes that's a little more translatable for folks. And that's just very simply break-even units times selling price. So what's the revenue value of these units? And in this case, it's 37,500 times the $100, so it's 3.75 million. So we got to produce 3.75 million in revenue to have zero profit here, since we got 1.5 million in the fixed costs. Now I want to show you a little bit of a twist on that, just to illustrate one way that Professor Ferris approaches this, and I think this is really effective. The questions in MBTN will test your knowledge kind of inside and out, and it doesn't get overly complex. It's just that you'll have to apply both your understanding of those equations and that level of algebra, the skill that you brought into that got you into this program, right? So you need to know formulas and a little bit of algebra. So forget we saw that last problem, right? Just forget that problem and we'll start over again. A little bit different framing. Startup companies break-even revenue figure of 3.75 million. $100 selling price, fixed cost of 1.5 million. Now the question here looks tricky. What's the variable cost? So your job here is to think about variable cost. The way to do this is just go back to your formulas and take a look. We know if we can figure out all the other information, variable cost is right here in the basic break-even equation. From the problem we know that. From the problem we know that. The difficulty at this point is that we don't know that and we don't know that. So we can't solve this if we have two unknowns. So we just go back to the second formula and with a little bit of a conversion here. We do know this, right? We do know this, so we can figure out break-even units and then plug it into here, right? So break-even units are going to be the revenue we know is 3.75 million. Selling price is 100. So if we divide both sides by 100, we get break-even units are, no surprise, the 37,500. So you're still pretending like you didn't know that, right? So, but we can plug that 37.5 into this formula over here, and we'll spread it out horizontally here. 37.5 equals the fixed cost of 1.5 million divided by this margin, the selling price of 100, minus the variable cost, which is now the only unknown. So here's where we just do a little algebra. So if we multiply both sides by this term, 100 minus fixed costs, we lose it on the right and it's over here on the left. We multiply that out and it looks like that. And now we got to subtract this big number from both sides. So we end up with 37.5 times variable cost equals the difference between 1.5 and 3.75 million, which is 2.25 million. So dividing both sides now by the 37,500, we get, no surprise, $60. Okay, so standard basic break-even economic logic here. If you know those two formulas, you can figure out a lot of stuff. The two modules we have you doing with Paul's management by the numbers tutorials are break-even and then margins. Many of the past students have talked about how even these simple calculations have changed the way they think about some of these problems they face in their organizations. So take a look at those. Please let me know if you have any questions. And I very much look forward to seeing everybody next week. Take care.